I was a producer at ESPN for 10 years first. And that's where I was at 6 Olympic Games and heavyweight title fights, a Super Bowl, golf's majors, all of that. But I wanted to be on camera. So my very first time ever on live television was opening weekend of college football on ESPN2, which was in 70 million homes.
Wow.
I was sick to my stomach. What the elite performers do is they have a great relationship with failure. I don't even believe in failure anymore.
Would you think that's one of the most pivotal moments in your entire life?
Absolutely.
Welcome to Start With a Win, where we unpack leadership, personal growth and development, and how to build a better business. Let's go. What lever do high achievers pull to outperform everyone else? Today, we discover that on Start With a Win. Coming to you from Area 15 Ventures and Start With a Win headquarters, it's Adam Contos with Start With a Win. Today, we're talking with someone who has discovered this high achiever lever, Anne-Marie Anderson, a 3-time Emmy Award-winning sports broadcaster, keynote speaker, and author. She's covered 6 Olympic Games, the Super Bowl, and countless other major sporting events where high achievers outperform. After more than 3 decades in sports television, both in front of and behind the camera, she decided to make an audacious move and create a life she truly wanted. Now she's sharing her experiences and insights into high performance with us, teaching us how to dismantle self-doubt and take the bold risks that lead to a life we're excited about. Anne-Marie, welcome to Start With a Win.
Great to be here. I'm looking forward to chatting.
This is so much fun. You just launched a book. It's called Cultivating Audacity, Dismantle Doubt, and Let Yourself Win. You've seen a lot of winners in your time. I really want to dig into that today. But just a little small world experience here for everybody. Anne-Marie and I just figured out we went to the same high school in the 1900s.
In the 1900s, that's what my kids say. Yeah, the same high school, pre-cell phone. How did we live, Adam? I don't know.
I know. I mean, you had to go to a payphone, and then beepers came out eventually, and
Yeah, beepers were the new technology.
Beepers and payphones.
Yes.
You had a bunch of quarters in your pocket and your beeper, and you could go find a party. So anyhow, hey, this is going to be a lot of fun. But let me ask you this. You've experienced a lot. You've got, 3 Emmys behind you there. And, you've experienced a significant amount of success in your world. Mm-hmm. Gosh, where did you come up with the idea to write a book about audacity?
Well, I live audaciously, and it became a conscious decision. Audacity is just the willingness to take bold risks.
I like that.
And the more I would come across people, ask for coaching, I came across the same concepts over and over again of like the 4 barriers that stop people from doing the thing they want to do. So I decided to write it down, and that way people could refer back to it if they were interested in doing something different, creating something new in their life.
So, what is audacity anyway? If somebody says define audacity, what should they be thinking about? How does that feel in their heart?
The actual definition is a willingness to take bold risks. And what's happened in this country, Adam, is that sometimes it's seen as a negative, right? Like, oh, who does she think she is? It's so audacious.
Yeah.
My sister-in-law is from Argentina, and she was like, what do you mean? Like, audacity is all great, all positive. It's literally, we have somehow put a connotation on it that can be negative. People talk about, well, how is that different from confidence? So confidence is the belief in oneself, right? Audacity is the belief and the willingness to take action.
I love it. And you're right. As soon as I was doing the research on this, I thought, okay, yeah, people kind of throw a little bit of shade at each other by going, how audacious, like what you just did.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I like where your head's at with the direction of this thing. I mean, it is. If we didn't take bold risks, where would we all be today? I don't know that we'd be in existence, frankly. I don't know that.
It's true, actually.
Mankind would evolve.
Super deep. That goes before the 1900s. But yeah, exactly.
Totally. So, and it's funny. We grow up we live in these safety zones, unfortunately. And a lot of times, and frankly, our generation, I think, is known for building safety zones around our kids. And now we're trying to break them out of those.
Yeah.
What do you think about how we tried to reverse the impact of audacity and make people feel more comfortable versus what we're trying to get people to do now? How is that transformed? Why are we doing it now?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. We have more freedom than ever now to create our own lives. And Adam, I talk so much about, I'm not just talking about your career. I'm talking about a life you're excited to wake up to, how you spend your days and nights, right? We can work from home. We can create our own hours. We can work from around the globe. So that gave us freedom to take some risks. People talk about FOMO. I don't have FOMO. I don't know if you're like this. I think it's a generational thing, but like I have JOMO. Like if I can miss out on the party, I'm super excited, like the joy of missing out. But I do have the fear of staying the same. I never want to stay the same. And some people think that staying the same is safe, right? Safe. It actually isn't safe. It just ensures that no growth is possible. And I want to keep changing one way or the other.
So you said the word risk. Isn't it risky to stay the same then? I would think so.
I would think, because here's the deal. Unless you're completely ecstatic with every area of your life and don't ever want to grow that even, then staying the same is just a cage.
Right. Okay. So let's take this to your past. I mean, you've broadcasted some of the most amazing sporting events in the world. I mean, the most amazing sporting events in the world. Let's just say that. I mean, it's top of the pile there. Nothing better. Those people didn't get there by not being audacious. Would you agree?
The athletes, absolutely. All of them.
So why do we, that we'll call it like 0.001%, make it to the field of play, whatever that sport is that you would broadcast from? What did you learn from them about this? Is it something that they have in common, or, do they just have a tolerance for people's opinions? Or, I mean, what got them there?
I like that you say people's opinions, because that's the biggest one I come across. And it's the one I really struggled with too, is like, what will other people think? Will they think I'm vain? Will I be embarrassed in front of them? Judged? What the elite performers do is they have a great relationship with failure. I don't even believe in failure anymore, Adam. It's all just data to me. And I always tell people, like, recalibrate your relationship with rejection so that it means something else. It's not at the end of the sentence. Here's the thing. I've spent 35 years now working for ESPN in a variety of roles, and I'm freelance now. When I interviewed with ESPN at 21 years old out of college, I was rejected. They said no. And I was like, I need a job. I really need a job. So I wrote a letter, right? Because back then we used pen and paper, and licked a stamp, as unsanitary as that now seems, slapped it on there and sent it off. And I said, thank you for the time. Unfortunately, I don't think I really expressed what I could offer in a different way to ESPN. And I went through that. And they called me back and they gave me a 6-month job, 6 at night to 3 in the morning, Mondays off, for $15,000 a year. And I was ecstatic. I was just thinking the other day, what if I hadn't written that letter?
Right.
Like, what if they had said no? And I was like, okay, well, that's a no. I can't even imagine. So what I've found is when they fail or lose or get injured, it is all about their response to it, which sounds cliche, but it's never a finite point for them, ever.
I love that. And you're right. They get up, they dust themselves off, and they do it again and go after it better or different.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's what you did with writing that letter. That letter probably, would you think that's one of the most pivotal moments in your entire life?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I was a 21-year-old kid. Like, the audacity of that. Like, I didn't have a job at 21, but I had a lot of nerve. And it wasn't conscious. Adam, my other option was to move back home and live with my parents. And I love my parents, but I didn't want to live with them after college. So it was like, I always say, I'm not sure if it was audacity or desperation, that first one. Like, somebody hire me so I can get an apartment.
By the way, for all the kids contemplating moving back home with your parents, our generation, that was our goal, is never to have to move back home with our parents.
Never. I know everybody's coming back now. My kids aren't that age yet, but isn't the success in watching them fly?
Totally.
Moving back with your parents, Adam, that's so true. Moving back with your parents at our age was like a failure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, we had like 8 people living in an apartment because we didn't want to go back to our bedrooms at our parents' house.
That's right. Nor were we welcome, at least like in my house. I'm the youngest of 5. And I thought, wow, they're really going to miss me when I'm gone. Oh, only girl. Yeah. My parents, as soon as I left for college, were partying for the next decades.
How audacious. Hey. All right. So you said you had 4 barriers in your book. Give me the first one of those barriers. What does that look like? Fear.
And that was my big barrier. People don't take the risk. They don't do the thing because they're afraid of judgment, embarrassment, exposure, failure, rejection, whatever it is. Fear is a huge barrier.
I mean, the reality is fear is a non-existent, story you make up in your head about the future, right?
Right.
So, I mean, first of all, why do we experience that and how do we get over it?
Well, for experience it, it's uncomfortable because we don't know the outcome.
Okay.
And, I always say this, that in Audacity, the win is the action and not in the outcome.
Okay.
Because, we don't know how it's going to turn out. The mindset of Audacity, like the first part of it is this optimism. And the optimism is that everything's going to work out. And it's not going to work out the way you want necessarily, but that you're going to survive whatever the outcome is. That's like a key component. And I think we've been taught overcome your fears, squash them down, get rid of fear. You can't do any of that, Adam. You have to take it with you. So I say make friends with fear and take it on the road with you. It just doesn't get to make decisions for you.
Awesome. I love that. I actually, and I have a chapter in my book called Party with the Beast that is about fear. Because I mean, it is that thing on the other side of the door that we haven't opened yet that we're putting in our heads that we're afraid of. And,
right.
Just like, they actually made a movie about that, Monsters, Inc.
Yes.
Where you had these monsters going and scaring kids. And then eventually they went in and got the kids to laugh. Yep. But it was the same monster.
Yeah.
So Party with the Beast, people.
I love it. That's a great title.
So I love the fear. You've heard it broken down like false evidence appearing real, all sorts of other different acronyms like that. But the reality is fear stops more dreams from happening than anything else, is my understanding. And
that makes sense.
Simply because people won't take action.
Right. Because they're afraid of the outcome or they're afraid they won't get what they want. So what if you detached yourself from the outcome and just lived in the experience? Here's my biggest example with fear in my life is that I was a producer at ESPN for 10 years first. And that's where I was at 6 Olympic Games and heavyweight title fights, a Super Bowl, golf's majors, all of that. But I wanted to be on camera. And I figured out like this backdoor way to be a sideline reporter for a regional arm of ESPN in the Mountain West, as a matter of fact.
Nice.
Somebody in Denver. And I was all set to do that. And something got jumbled up. Somebody was sick, whatever. So my very first time ever on live television was opening weekend of college football on ESPN2, which was in 70 million homes.
Wow.
I was sick to my stomach. I was crying outside the stadium to my ex-husband at the time, like, I just can't do this. And what I learned there, because I was afraid of being bad, judged, exposed, embarrassed, very public stage, is I went on and I was bad, judged, exposed, embarrassed, and survived. Right? Because nobody's going to be good their first time on television, much less when you got, that big of an audience. But I survived it. And I did it again the next week because I had a contract, so I had no choice, right? And the only time that was better about the second time was that it wasn't the first. And I just kept getting up to do it. And that's what I'm talking about with the action. I couldn't be attached to the outcome because the only way for me to get better was to be bad first.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly. That's incredible. I have a friend who has a saying, they can't eat you. When it comes to those people judging you. So I hear a lot of the connotations around this thing called imposter syndrome in what you're saying. How does that play into this?
I don't love the term imposter syndrome, maybe because it's been so homogenized at this point.
Yeah.
What I interpret it to be is I don't really belong here. I think that's what imposter syndrome is. And that actually is another one of the barriers.
Oh,
you know what I mean? That's
cool.
It's the inner critic.
All right.
I think that's your inner critic telling you you're not good enough. You're not ready, and I say, well, that voice, the key to an inner critic is separating it from yourself. Like I have a 12-year-old daughter and I picked her up at school and I said, hey, how was school today? And she said, well, I'm stupid. I can't do math. And oh, by the way, I'm fat. And I was like, welcome home. Wow. That's a lot. And so we talked about that. And, I asked the typical question that we ask, would you say that to somebody else? And she said, of course not. And I said, so if you wouldn't say it to somebody else, then that's probably not your voice saying it to you. So let's separate it and give that voice a name. And this seems so simple, Adam, but it really works. And so I said, give it any name, not somebody you know, because you don't want to give somebody that kind of power in your head. So she decided the name would be Jerry. And I said, what would you say to Jerry if he said, you're stupid, you can't do math, and oh, by the way, you're fat? And she thought for a second. She said, I would say, shut up, Jerry. And I said, okay. So when we're in the house and I hear her at the kitchen counter getting frustrated saying, I can't do this. We don't even say shut up in my house. But when I hear her saying, I can't do this, I will go, shut up, Jerry. And she'll be like, oh, okay. It kind of snaps her out of the control that the inner critic has over her.
That's funny. I love that. I'm gonna start using that. My wife's gonna go, who's Jerry? But we use something kind of similar when somebody's running behind. We always say, get your shit together, Carol.
Mm-hmm.
And
Carol.
Carol's our person in our house. So, I think renaming that is a very powerful thing because it totally removes you from the personal attack of what's going on there. It just,
that's right.
And it really marginalizes what Jerry or Carol are doing or thinking. So
right.
I think that's fantastic. The inner critic is, is there a psychological principle that you can think of or that exists that as to why we think that way, why we're so hard on ourselves?
So I'm not a psychologist, but what my thoughts are and what I expressed in the book is your inner critic is your superego wanting to keep you safe.
Okay.
So I think that's all it is. Really, is it, this seems dangerous. This seems like you could get hurt. This seems like it might not work out. And I want you to be safe. So just don't do it. So
it's self-preservation type piece. And really what that does is it drives us towards mediocrity, it seems.
Right. And that's why the second part of the subtitle of the book is Let Yourself Win. Mm-hmm. Because when you're listening to the inner critic, you're stopping yourself. And so if you can at least separate that, you have a chance to try something different without judging yourself. You're afraid of other people's judgment and yet you're judging yourself.
Yeah.
That's not okay.
Right. Yeah. That's interesting. Huh. Okay. Give me another barrier. We've got two of them so far.
Time and money are the other two, and I think they're twins.
Okay.
Because you have to know how much you have of both before you can change your distribution of it.
Explain that.
So for time, I call it the urgency fallacy. We've been taught that everything is urgent, right? Got to get it done. And things that are urgent, we really have been sold that they're important, somehow important because you have to get it done. It has an impending deadline. You have to get it done. But it isn't really. It's those satisfying tasks that we can check off our list, whatever they are, reply to the text, answer the email, sign the permission slip, make dinner, whatever it is. A lot of times when we have something important that we want to do, we say, I'll do it when. I'll do it when I have more time, when I have more money, whatever it is. Well, urgent never ends. And I mean, never ending. And so until you create time, carve it out for what's important to you, you're going to stay the same because you'll be in that whirlpool because waiting doesn't work. So for example, for me, for writing the book, I was like, okay, I am a mom of 3. I'm a full-time broadcaster. I'm a keynote speaker. I think I'll write a book, in my free time kind of thing. So I said, all right, I'm going to get up at 4:30 every morning. And I am going to write for an hour and then start dealing with kids and TV stuff and all that. And that worked for maybe 10 days. It was horrible. I'm not particularly inspired to write. Like my creative juices aren't flowing at 4:30 in the morning anyway.
Right.
And it was horrible. So I figured out I needed an hour somehow. For me, what worked was 4 15-minute chunks. I literally wrote this book, Adam, in 15-minute increments, mostly on my bathroom floor.
Wow.
Because as any parent knows, that's where you can get privacy. So I would go in and like lock the door and, for 15 minutes, that's all I had to focus was writing there. And the kids would knock at the door, Mom, I'm hungry. I'd be like, same, buddy, I'll cook in 15. But if I hadn't created that space and tried to write it all in one point, it would have never happened. So the urgency fallacy is putting aside things that are urgent. I believe almost everything can wait 15 minutes to create room for what you want to do.
I love that. It seems like, we live in an urgent environment. Everybody is hair on fire, got to get this done. And it really only means something to them. It doesn't mean something to everybody else that has other priorities. And that's, it seems like you go to a meeting in the office or something like that, and people have their own pet projects that are always urgent for them.
Right.
Or they see that there's a blank opening on your calendar when you're thinking, yes, I'm going to get some things done here. Mm-hmm. And they want to send you a meeting request. So, I hate meeting requests.
So do I. Here's how you know whether it's urgent or important. Okay. Urgent is reacting to something else, to a request of some kind. Can you sign this? Can you make this? Can you meet with me? Can you whatever? Important does not have an impending deadline usually, but consequences is if it isn't done, and it's self-generated. So urgent, I'm responding to other things. Can you get this over to me right away? Important is me self-generating something that helps move me closer to my values, visions, and who I want to be.
And this is probably the most important thing that that you've talked about in the book, or we'll talk about in the book, I would guess, because, you can go make more money, but you can't make more time.
No, but you can use money to buy time.
Ooh.
And that's what I ended up doing because I started paying attention. As I said, you have to know how much you have of each before you can spend it. So, money, easy enough to know how much you have, right? Time, writing down how you spend your time. For me, ironically, I hate math. Hello, my daughter. And so I don't like doing contracts, expense reports, all of that. I started to pay attention to how much time I was spending doing that. And then finally, I realized I could use money to get an assistant to buy that time back. And so I have somebody now who takes care of all those things so that I have more time to do the things that are important to me. So even if we're looking at like my keynote speaking business, I have more time to prospect and connect with clients now instead of spending my precious time doing contracts. So you can make those exchanges. And as soon as you look at money as energy, buying back some energy for yourself, that changed a lot for me. Even if that energy is, it's not to be more productive in terms of my business, but I want to spend more time with my kids. I want to have more energy to be with them so I can spend some money to offload some things so I can have that with them.
I need to tell my wife that money's energy. I love that saying.
Truly. Yeah.
So, hey, this is fascinating. We've talked about these 4 barriers, fear, inner critic, time, and money. How did you come up with those 4 concepts? They seem like they play so well together in order to accomplish what we've got going here.
Through years and years of talking to people about the big thing, I get really excited helping people, get to the next level in whatever it is. It's just something I like to see other people succeed. I think it's the athlete in me,
right? And
being able to watch competitions for 35 years as a profession. And these were the 4 things that kept coming up. And they're for me as well. But when I heard it, I thought there's got to be a way to figure out systems with these things. And every single one is different than like quell your inner critic, budget your time better. There has to be a system. That's the thing. Like people are like, oh, the book, it's telling me it's going to inspire me to go. Yeah. It's also going to tell you how to do it?
Love that.
What do you need to do? Let's examine what your particular money story is. And then what are you going to do about it? And that's why I wanted to write the book.
So did everything feed into that final hypothesis, or that hypothesis of systems are going to overcome these things? Is that?
Well, nothing overcomes them, right? I always say that. I like the word overcome.
I like that.
The hypothesis is getting curious about each one of these.
Okay.
Like a neutral curiosity, not so much attached to emotion. What am I afraid of exactly? Am I afraid that I won't get this job and I'm going to die destitute and alone? Like, what am I afraid of with each one of those barriers? And I found when you get curious as an observer, that's why I want Jerry to be separate from you. You can get a lot more done than that emotion of like, I got rejected. That must mean I'm not good. You know, they said no, so I must not be ready for that opportunity. Maybe you are, and they just said no. Maybe you ask again like I did, or I would say, I don't hear no, I hear not yet or next.
Right. I love that. I was taught that in sales. Is there are no no's. It's only a not yet or not now is what I've heard. So, what we all learn a big lesson when we write our books. And there's always this one thing that you walk away from it going, aha, those, thousands of hours that I spent on this. And by the way, like a 250 page book, folks, is not writing 250 pages. It's more like writing, 2,500 or 25,000 pages and then whittling it down. So it's got to be a labor of love, but you always walk away with this key epiphany in your writing. What's a key lesson that you walked away from writing this book with?
When I was 11, right, we go all the way back there. My father was the greatest, he's passed now, but the greatest supporter of me. And when I was 11, one time he said, Amory, you're getting cocky. Like, as a parent, I'm like, in a lifetime of great work by him, I remember one time at 11 where he said, Amory, you're getting cocky. So as I was writing this book, I decided to look up the definition of cocky. I don't know. I was writing one day. And the definition of cocky, Adam, is so sure of one's abilities that it annoys other people. That's the whole thing. Like the legit definition. And I thought, wait a second. So sure of one's abilities. Yes, I am. I'm sure of my abilities. That it annoys other people? My teenagers would say, that's OPP. That's other people's problems. And I then was able to look back and think, that's what I let stop me so many times. That's what I let stop me. That's what had me working for 10 years at ESPN before even saying to anyone I wanted to be on air, was I didn't want people to think less of me because I thought cocky was, you're so sure of what's going on, but you're totally wrong. You don't have that qualification. So I then was able to recognize, I actually let one tiny phrase that was said to me when I was 11 affect my life. So for other people listening and for people that are reading the book, like that curiosity can reveal some big stuff.
Wow. I love that. It fits right into your book, just dismantling these opinions and letting yourself win, dismantling this doubt and letting yourself win. I mean, it's really audacious, Anne-Marie, frankly.
What did you learn in writing your book? I'm curious.
I learned that you're the only thing that can stop you.
Right. Yes.
I mean, really, that's what it came down to. When you look at it, I mean, I'm a 2-time college dropout. I became the CEO of a public company and ran a SWAT team, and we blew things up and saved people and kicked in doors. I mean, it's just awesome. All of the different missions in life. I looked at every little thing that we did in life, and I looked at it as a mission. And you had some wins and you had some losses in there, but that nobody can stop you except you.
Yeah.
So
yeah, what a revelation, right?
Weird. I love that idea.
Wow.
But we look at it and go, okay, it's 5 p.m. Time to stop me. Or, it's, there's a traffic jam. Life's, this day's going to suck, whatever it is.
Yeah.
No, it's your decision.
Yes. Yes. I had a disappointing call early in the morning last week, and I was frustrated. And it was early. It was like 7:30. I hadn't taken the kids to school yet. And as I'm driving my 12-year-old to school, she's like, what's going on? And I told her about it. And she said, well, it's early. There's still plenty of room for positivity. And I was like, smack, like, okay, there it is. Am I going to define my day by something that happened at 7:30 in the morning?
Right.
And
yeah.
It was a little bit of cold water. I loved it.
Yeah. It's a breath of fresh air. I'm glad you have that in your life. Everybody listen up, find that in your own life. We can all be a little happier and get a little more done and, be accomplished and feel the joy in our heart of doing that. So Anne-Marie, where can we find you online if we want to? Obviously your book's all over Amazon and it's blowing it up. So make sure you pick up a copy of this before they sell out, everybody. But where else are you online? You do public speaking, people call you for just about everything, probably coaching and help me do these things in my business. Where do we look you up at?
Well, you can find me, like the central place is my website, AnneMarieAnderson.com. There's an E on the end of Anne. And you can go there if you're curious about the book. By the way, you can get the first chapter free. I wanted to get the first chapter free to have people read it and start thinking, yeah, you know what? Maybe I should try the thing. You can find me on Instagram at Anne-Marie Anderson TV or at Cultivating Audacity as well.
I love it. Everybody remember, this whole personal and business leadership is not a one-time thing. It's an all-the-time thing. And we have to continuously recharge our battery with different things like Anne-Marie's book. So I encourage you to check it out. There's a lot of great wisdom in it. It's killing it. Just came out in January. So congratulations.
Thank you.
New Year book. And you're on a lot of amazing programs and interviews with this. So we're honored to have you on Start With a Win. I have a question I ask all the great leaders on Start With a Win. And that's, how do you start your day with a win?
This is the simplest thing, but I actually hug, for an extended hug, my kids. And they know it. My 6'6", 17-year-old comes out of his room and I'm right there with arms open for a hug, because that connection grounding me in here's what's important, social connection. So if you have somebody in your home that you can hug, I could recommend trying it. And you hug for 15 seconds, which, teenage boys really love. And, but it just reminds me of what's really important in life.
I love that. It's, we do extended hugs at my house also, and it makes a difference. In fact, I think it's over 12 seconds or something like that. And you get that dopamine hit. And it actually physiologically changes you as a human being.
That's exactly right. That's why I do it, because I had read that and I get it, that connection and contact. Totally.
And it's even, with friends, very close people, it's okay to have a good hug. Hug it out, folks. So Anne-Marie Anderson, incredible broadcaster, award-winning broadcaster. You've contributed so much to the sports environment over the years. Now you're contributing to all of us with your new book. Everybody make sure you check it out. Go check out Anne-Marie online. And Anne-Marie, thank you for being on Start With a Win, and thanks for all you do.
Thank you for having me, Adam. It was fun talking with you.